Every time I toss a scrap, use a hammer, or even walk across the shop floor, it creates a big, booming echo. And in addition to the noise, the thin plywood floor that came with my trailer was already starting to get beat up from the couple of months I had been working inside. In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned my noisy, fragile space into a quiet, comfortable, and seriously bulletproof workshop using heavy-duty horse stall mats. The difference is absolutely shocking, and I'll walk you through the entire process, from planning and prep to the nitty-gritty of cutting these beasts so you can do it too. Let's get started. Before installing these mats, this space was loud, with a capital L. After spending several hours inside, I would start to deliberately soften my footsteps as I walked across the trailer, just so I wouldn't add unnecessarily to the noise. I knew I needed flooring that was inexpensive, tough, comfortable, and most importantly, quiet. I looked at everything from roll-out vinyl, fancy workshop flooring, even epoxy. But when I added up the durability, impact resistance, cost, and sound dampening properties, one option crushed all the others: horse stall mats. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Aren't those for barns? Yeah, they are. But think about it. A horse stall mat is a 3/4 inch thick vulcanized rubber sheet built to handle thousands of pounds of horse. So anything I can throw at it in here in the shop will leave it totally unscathed. So durability? Check. But sound absorption is really where these things shine. These mats are incredibly dense, which makes them perfect for absorbing the sound energy created from footsteps and falling wood scraps instead of casting those sounds back into the space. Best of all, they're cheap. I covered the entire floor of my 8.5 by 16 foot trailer for around $250. Of course, it wasn't totally effortless. These mats are heavy. Each 4x6 sheet weighs almost 100 pounds. They have a strong rubbery smell at first, and cutting them takes some technique. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to handle all of that. You know the old saying, measure twice, cut once. Well, when you're working with a trailer, it should be measure 5 times, cut once, because these things are never perfectly square. Before you buy anything, you need a rock-solid plan, and that starts with a drawing. I just use simple graph paper, but you can use whatever you're comfortable with. It doesn't need to be pretty, but it needs to have all your measurements in there. First, I measured the heck out of the trailer floor. I measured the width at the very front, in the middle, and the very back. I did the same thing for the length. This is super important because you'll find weird variations of a 1/2 inch or more that can mess up your whole layout. And don't forget to measure around any oddities like wheel wells, cabinets, or tie downs. My trailer has a rounded front, which I knew would be difficult to cut, but luckily I'm going to install some storage there later, so I just stopped a few feet short of the end. Once I had my numbers, I sketched out the mat layout. The most common mat size is 4x6 feet, so I played around with different orientations to see which one would give me the fewest cuts. Minimizing cuts is the name of the game here. It saves you time, sweat, and a lot of frustration. I went with a simple grid pattern, starting from the door and working my way back. I grabbed my mats from a local Tractor Supply, but any farm supply store will carry them. The second you get near them, you may notice the smell. It's from a process called off-gassing, which is totally normal for vulcanized rubber, but no doubt it is pretty strong. The best thing you can do is let them air out before you install them. I laid mine out on the ground on a sunny day. The sun and heat actually speed up the off-gassing process. If you can, prop them up on some scrap wood to get air flowing underneath. I also gave them a good wash with Simple Green, Dawn dish soap, water, and a push broom on both sides, and let them dry completely in the sun. A couple of days of this made a huge difference and probably got rid of around 80% of that initial smell. While the mats were airing out, I got the trailer floor prepped. With thinner flooring, it's really important to clean every piece of dust before install, but frankly, since these mats are so thick, simply sweeping the floor was sufficient. All right, time for the workout. These mats are heavy and awkward, so I seriously recommend grabbing a friend. I, however, am doing it myself because this is the hard way after all. I'm not sure I would have even been able to do this project by myself if not for one of these. This is called a mat mover, and wherever you buy your mats will probably also sell these. This was about $20. It's made of plastic. It has this pawl that grabs onto the mat when you slide it in, and anyone who's moved one of these mats knows that the hardest part is just holding onto it because it's so heavy and doesn't have handles. And so this gives you a nice big chunky handle to grab onto, and it will stay firmly in place. And when you're done with it, you just push this lever and it'll come right off. This really did make it a one-person job for me, and it was pretty reasonable. So I started with my first mat at the front of the trailer by the large cargo door. From there, I just worked my way out. The goal is to get the seams as tight as you possibly can. I found the best method was to lay the mat down so it overlapped the last one just a little bit, and then use your body weight to push and slide it into a nice tight fit. Because they're so heavy, they don't budge once they're in place. This is the part that scares most people, but I promise, if you use the right technique, it's totally manageable. You don't need fancy power tools. All you need is a simple utility knife with a fresh, sharp blade, a good straight edge, and a piece of scrap wood. Here's the secret. You don't cut through the mat. You score it over and over. First, I measured the gap I needed to fill, transferred that measurement to the mat, and drew a cut line with a silver Sharpie. Then I placed a scrap 2x4 directly under my cut line. This lifts the mat, and this is the important part, it lets the cut spread open as you slice, which means less friction on your blade. Using my straight edge as a guide, I made my first pass with the knife. I used firm, steady pressure, but I wasn't trying to be a hero and cut through it all at once. That first pass just creates a clean channel. Then I did a second pass and a third pass, and each one sinks a little deeper into the material. After 3 or 4 passes, I was about halfway through. At that point, you can just fold the mat right on the score line, and you can run your knife through the rest of it with almost zero effort. Patience and a sharp blade are your best friends. Seriously, change your blade more often than you think you need to. It'll make the job easier. Visually, the change is incredible. The floor is now this professional-looking black surface. It finally feels like a real workshop, not just a wooden box. But the real test, the whole reason for doing this, is the sound. Remember this sound from the beginning? Now listen to this. It's just gone. That loud, echoey noise is now a quiet, satisfying thud. I knew going in that the mats would reduce the noise in here, but I really had no idea how dramatic it would be. And the physical comfort is impressive too. It kind of feels like standing on a giant anti-fatigue mat. My feet and back are already thanking me. I can work in here for hours now without feeling beat up. So, was it worth it? 100% yes. Yes, it was a day of very heavy lifting, but for the money and time I put in, the payoff has been huge. I took a space that was loud and uncomfortable and turned it into a quiet, protected, and professional-grade workshop. The sound dampening is amazing. The durability is unbeatable, and the comfort is off the charts. My biggest piece of advice is to be patient while you're cutting. Trust that score and fold method. Don't rush, and use plenty of fresh blades. If you've been putting up with a noisy, uncomfortable workshop floor, I really can't recommend this upgrade enough. It's the best improvement I've made so far. If you found this helpful and you're thinking about doing this yourself, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more trailer upgrades planned that you won't want to miss. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you've used horse stall mats in your own projects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.